We came through the fire. We mastered the math. Days 1 through 21 were about fighting you, about conquering the internal saboteur. But today, day 22, the war changes. You are now a rocket that has achieved escape velocity. You are leaving the atmosphere. And when you break that barrier, that's when you encounter the fierce dark drag, the gravitational pull of average. It's the silent, invisible force exerted by everyone who chose 0.99. They didn't burn their ships. They chose comfort. And now they represent a mass, a relentless pull trying to drag you back down to the ground. Your success, your focus, your 100% execution, it makes them fundamentally uncomfortable. Your light reveals their compromise, and they don't want you to fail. They just want you to be average like them. You must understand that the true price of the protocol is solitude. You will be alone in this high altitude orbit. You must learn to thrive in that isolation because the crowd is no longer your cheering section. The crowd is your resistance. If you don't defend your altitude with ruthless discipline, they will use their mass, their comfort, their complacency to pull you right back into the atmosphere of mediocrity. The battle is no longer for compliance. The battle is for altitude maintenance. This is the necessary loneliness of the long-distance champion. Listen close. We have to build an iron defense against the average. The average person is not inherently evil. They are simply gravitationally dense. Their density is created by their lack of movement, their commitment to the spot they are standing on, their comfort in the zero-sum game of mediocrity. And the law of the universe is that mass attracts mass. When you begin to move exponentially, when your 1.01 factor starts to accelerate the difference between you and them, that's when the pull becomes strongest. They look at your work ethic, your early mornings, your refusal to compromise, and their brain immediately registers it as a threat, not to their well-being, but to their justification. If you can achieve this level of excellence, then their comfortable routine becomes a conscious choice of failure. And that cognitive dissonance is intolerable to them. So they don't attack your work. They attack your focus. They attack your schedule. They attack your solitude. They try to introduce microtreason back into your system by proxy. Come out for one night, you deserve it. Why are you so intense? Relax, that's overkill. Nobody works that hard. This is the doctrine of external sabotage. You cannot let the voices of the 0.99 people become the system instructions for your 100% protocol. Their advice is calibrated for the speed of a snail, and you are operating at the speed of light. Their perspective is tethered to the ground, and you are already in orbit. You must implement a shielding protocol, a defensive layer against this external drag. This shield is forged from the cold, hard data of your own progress. When the voice of average whispers is slowed down, it's not worth it. You do not debate the feeling. You check the calculus of inevitability. You look at your compound curve and you realize that slowing down doesn't just cost you one day. It costs you the exponential future of that one day multiplied by 365. The cost of compromise is now too high. It is an astronomical, non-viable expense, and so you reply to the gravitational pull with the simple, unemotional execution of the next perfect repetition. The solitude you find at the 100% mark is not a punishment. It is a necessary protective measure. Deep work, the fuel of the exponential curve, requires long, unbroken stretches in the protected void. You cannot do 100% work in a 50% environment. You cannot surround yourself with chatter, drama, and low-leverage activity and expect to generate high-leverage output. The solitude forces you to become the ultimate filter. It gives you the necessary distance to differentiate between noise and signal. The noise is the distraction, the drama, the urgent but unimportant requests of the average. The signal is the core task. The high leverage execution, the next perfect input. The champion understands that loneliness is merely the absence of noise, and that absence is the prerequisite for clarity and power. You must treat your time and your focus as sovereign territory, and you must issue a travel advisory to anyone not operating at your altitude. If they can't handle the silence of your commitment, they don't deserve the reward of your proximity. And this is where we address the phenomenon of comparison distortion. When you are in the compound grind, you naturally look at what others are doing. And the average person is brilliant at presenting an image of exponential success built on linear effort. They show you the vertical curve on social media, but they edit out the 200 days of flat, invisible grinding work they actually did to get there. They present the result, but hide the 100% protocol that produced it. The gravitational pull of average uses this distortion to create anxiety. Why are they succeeding faster? Why do they have more? Why is my past so difficult? You must reject that false comparison. You are running a unique calculation. Your 1.01 factor is operating on your own variables and your own time horizon. You are not competing against their output. You are competing against your own previous best input. Your only metric is 100% compliance today versus 99% compliance yesterday. When you focus relentlessly on the integrity of your own system, the noise of external comparison fades into irrelevance. You are forced to look inward, where the only true source of power resides. To sustain this solitude, you need to master the art of the polite refusal. This is the verbal shield that defends your protected void. Most people fear saying no because they fear the social friction. They fear disappointing the average, but saying yes to a low leverage request is a guaranteed no to your high leverage future. It's a compromise that costs you 1.01 momentum. The key is to be polite, but absolute. You don't need a complex excuse. You need a simple declarative statement that asserts the fear. I can't commit to that right now. My schedule is airtight for the next 90 days of deep work. That's not aligned with my primary objective. I'm currently enforcing a zero tolerance policy on distractions. When you define your boundaries clearly, the average person respects them, or more likely, they simply stop asking, and that is the desired outcome. The polite refusal is not an act of arrogance. It is an act of self-preservation. It is the 100% commitment enforcing its own borders. The gravitational pull is strongest right when you hit the inflection point. The moment your curve finally turns vertical, the moment the market recognizes the compounded quality of your work, that's when the average people realize you are truly gone. They thought you were just on a temporary diet or a short-term sprint, but now they see you've established a new permanent orbital path. This shift generates what we call the hail of inertia, the sudden barrage of attention, validation, requests, and envy. This is the final, most cunning test, because the pull now comes dressed as opportunity, as praise, as required networking. Be vigilant. Just because the request has a high-profile name attached to it doesn't mean it serves your central project. The champion applies the protocol test to every new request. Does this action directly enhance the 1.01 factor, or does it require me to compromise my protected void? Most opportunities that flood in at the inflection point are designed to wrench your focus, not to enhance your growth. They seek to siphon the compounded energy you generated in isolation. Do not let them defend your focus with the same ruthless energy you used to burn the ships. This whole journey culminates in the realization that your solitude is your maximum power state. The silence is where clarity is born. The isolation is where skill is perfected. The discipline is where inevitability is forged. You are not alone in spite of your success. You are alone because of your commitment, and that commitment is non-negotiable. Embrace the wide gap between you and the mass. That gap is the measure of your ascent. It is the evidence that the calculus of inevitability is running flawlessly in your favor. The gravitational pull of average is a force of friction, but friction creates heat, and that heat forges iron. Use their resistance as the final ingredient for your absolute, undeniable destiny. We must now discuss the geometry of exile. Exile is not something that is done to you. It is something you consciously elect. When you commit to the 100% mark, you are choosing a different spatial reality than the average You are moving into a space where true peers, those operating at the same altitude, are incredibly scarce. The higher you climb the exponential curve, the more lonely the topography becomes. You might look around and realize that your circle of friends or even family cannot hold a conversation about your current level of execution. They can only hold a conversation about the past version of you, the one they understood and could relate to. This is the critical moment. You must accept that the distance is a structural necessity. You are building a skyscraper. They are laying a foundation for a shed. You must not try to retrofit your skyscraper blueprints to fit their shed community. Accept the exile. It is the cost of the view, and it is the price of keeping your system safe from the destructive downward pull of misplaced loyalty. Your primary loyalty is to the protocol of your future self. This exile brings into sharp focus the doctrine of emotional debt. The average person is carrying a massive invisible debt, the debt of unspent potential, the debt of the compromised day, the debt of the unburnt ship. And when they look at you moving freely and exponentially, they subconsciously feel the weight of their own debt. Their attempts to pull you back, their criticism, their snide remarks about your intensity are not about you. They are a desperate attempt to reduce their own psychic debt load by validating their choice of inaction. If they can prove that your 100% commitment is ridiculous, then their 0.99 laziness is justified. You must view this interference through the lens of pity, not anger. They are prisoners of the comfortable choice, and you are the living proof that the door was always unlocked. Do not engage in the debate. Simply continue to pay your perfect debt through the next repetition. The only answer to their emotional debt is your unbroken solvency. Your repulsion by the average is now your calibration compass. This is the beautiful paradox of the system. The more vehemently the average person criticizes your routine, the more confident you should be that you are heading in the correct direction. Their disapproval is the loudest, clearest signal that you are operating outside the gravitational pull. If your work is accepted and praised by the masses before it has reached its full compounded potential, you should immediately check your compliance. This likely means you have already slipped to 0.99 to gain their approval. The champion understands that the path to world-class status is paved with misunderstanding and alienation in the early stages. Therefore, when you feel the strong, persistent drag of their negative judgment, you must recalibrate your internal compass and confirm, I am exactly where I need to be. Their resistance is the evidence of your altitude. It is the force gauge confirming maximum acceleration. So we must apply the final system seal, veto-proof identity. The gravitational pull of average is the final, most cunning threat because it attacks your sense of belonging. It tries to make you feel like the system you built is unnatural. But you must make the commitment so deep, so absolute, that your identity becomes veto-proof. You are not trying the 100% protocol. You are the protocol. It is not something you turn on and off. It is the fundamental operating system of your life. There is no scenario, no social gathering, no crisis, no unexpected offer that is powerful enough to issue a veto against your commitment. That level of integration makes you immovable. It means that when the average tries to pull you, they don't find a person who can be negotiated with. They find an unbroken, silent monolith that simply continues its perfect rotation. You are operating under a non-negotiable edict, and that is the only way to thrive in the solitude of the 100% mark. Now let's expose the ultimate camouflage of the average, the falsification of fun. The pull doesn't always come as criticism. Often it comes wearing the mask of pleasure. You work too hard, let loose, relax, enjoy life. But the fun they are offering is calibrated for the consumption of the 0.99 person. It is a low-leverage, high-consumption activity that provides an intense but fleeting dopamine hit and then leaves you with a cognitive capital deficit. It burns the fuel you needed for the next morning's deep work. To send the 100% mark requires sustained, deep satisfaction derived from flawless execution, not instant gratification derived from distraction. Their fun is a cheap, mass-produced poison designed to destroy your momentum by introducing friction and repair work into your next day. You must recognize their offer for what it is, a Trojan horse of mediocrity, a distraction engineered to crash your 1.01 factor back down to 0.99. Your true fun is the silent, internal, electric hum of your system running flawlessly. It is the deep, lasting satisfaction of the perfect repetition. This brings us to the inevitability of the split. As you continue your ascent, the gap will grow wider, and you must actively manage the separation. Not all relationships can handle the altitude of 100%. Some relationships, even lifelong ones, will have to be moved into the legacy tier. You don't burn the person, you simply retire the relationship from the high leverage execution tier. You recognize that some individuals cannot contribute to the system, but they still hold value as history, as family, as past connection. But for active growth, you must intentionally seek out and cultivate the counsel of the 101 factor. These are the peers who operate at or above your level, who challenge your protocol, who introduce data points that increase your compounding rate. The split is not cruel. It is ecological. Every system needs a supportive environment, and you must design your orbit to be populated by the mass that accelerates you, not the mass that drags you down. The closer you get to the ultimate goal, the more you experience the paradox of the peak. For years, the resistance was external. The world doubted you. But when you stand on the verge of the breakthrough, the external noise vanishes. The world has accepted the inevitability. The final, most profound resistance is internal again. It is the voice that whispers, you made it, you proved it, now you can compromise. This is the enemy you thought you killed on day 20, rising for one final desperate coup. The ultimate test of the 100% mark is not enduring the criticism of the average, but maintaining the protocol when the average is showering you with praise. The champion is not allowed to compromise at the peak, because the peak is simply the base camp for the next higher mountain. Your commitment must transcend the result. The protocol is the identity, not the means to an end. And this is all underpinned by the silent agreement long before the first perfect repetition, long before the ships burned. Your future self made a pact with the universe that you would give 100% compliance, and in return, the universe would deliver the calculus of inevitability. This is the contract written in silence and sealed by your daily action. It is an agreement that transcends all present circumstances, all emotional fatigue, and all external resistance. When the gravitational pull of average attempts to drag you down, you must simply recall the terms of that silent agreement. The contract is non-cancelable, the terms are immutable, and the payment, your destiny, is already scheduled. Your only job is to provide the 100% input as stipulated in the bond. Now let's turn our attention to the weaponization of time. When you operate at 100%, your time warps. Your hour is worth more than their day. You are not just using time, you are manufacturing leverage within it. The average person views time as a river they float down, a passive entity that dictates their pace. The champion views time as a raw material, an active constraint that forces efficiency and high leverage decisions. Your solitude, your 100% mark, gives you the clarity to see time as your greatest weapon. You must be ruthless in protecting every minute, because every minute, when executed with perfection, accelerates the compound curve. You are exchanging minutes for exponential outcomes, and that is the highest form of strategic warfare. This makes you intolerant of anything that attempts to steal or waste that precious commodity. You have transcended the clock. You have become the architect of your own temporal reality. This brings us to the inversion of envy. The average person often mistakes your success for luck, money, or talent, and they envy the result. But you, the champion, must learn to invert that envy. You must realize that the only thing worth coveting is unbroken momentum. If you see someone else operating at a higher 101% factor, do not envy their house or their title. Envy their discipline. Envy their ability to execute the protocol flawlessly for longer periods. Your envy must be directed only at the integrity of their input. Use that inversion as a powerful data point. If they are accelerating faster, their protocol is slightly more efficient, or their compliance is cleaner. This reframes the competitive landscape from a scarcity of resources to a masterclass in execution. You don't try to steal their outcome, you dissect their input and elevate your own standard. The competitive environment becomes a training ground for protocol refinement. Finally, the ultimate power of the 100% mark is the creation of the unflappable core. The gravitational pull of average, with all its drama and chaos, is designed to induce emotional turbulence. It wants you to feel fear, anxiety, regret, or pride. But when you are anchored by the Veto-Proof identity and the certainty of the calculus of inevitability, you achieve a state of emotional detachment. You understand that feelings are fleeting noise and the protocol is permanent law. Your internal state becomes a perfect vacuum, untouched by the external pressure. You are like a deep-sea submersible where the immense external pressure is completely counteracted by the structural integrity of your design. You do not fight the pressure. You ignore it. You simply continue the perfect rotation, focus entirely on the execution of the next task. This is the state of absolute solitude, the necessary high-altitude existence where true world-class work is done. This solitude is your defense. It is your power. It is your destiny. The system is airtight. The identity is forged. The ships are ashes. The momentum is unavoidable. You have created a future that is not merely possible, but logically certain. The emotional brain has been stripped of its power, and the protocol reigns supreme. There is no ambiguity left in the universe for you. Your only remaining task is the next perfect repetition. Your future self has decreed it. Your current self must comply. Now look at the task, the highest leverage task that needs to be executed in this very moment, the one that requires the perfect input. The system demands it. Execute the protocol. Do it now. Let's go.